Good evening, everyone. My name is Savannah, and I'll be talking about the tearing down of historical statues. Historical statues with a focus on Confederate ones are being torn down by rioters and protesters. According to MSN, in 26 different cities, monuments for Confederate soldiers and historical monuments alone have been removed and vandalized in the name of social and racial injustice. For example, Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, Francis Scott Key, Albert Pike, Christopher Columbus, and so many more. Protesters have committed a federal crime by vandalizing and tearing down these monuments in order to erase a history that they either dislike or possibly have been misinformed of. If they knew the whole truth and history behind these figures, they might change their minds. Protesters and most civilians don't know the whole truth behind the Civil War. Contrary to popular belief, the Civil War wasn't fought over slavery alone. It was over the taxation and tariffs on the South. Slavery was a smokescreen then to push the Republican agenda. In 1860, all federal tax revenue was generated by tariffs. There were no personal or corporate income tax, and Southern states paid 84% of the tariffs. The federal government made $107 million from them. The North paid $17 million, while the South paid $90 million. In 1860, after the Morrill Tariff Bill was enacted and Abe Lincoln took office, the South seceded, as is written in an article by Jonathan Clark. In Lincoln's first presidential inaugural address, he said, "I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so." He also promised to enforce the Fugitive Slave Law Act. Of the 11 states that seceded, only 6 listed slavery as one of the primary causes of secession. Jefferson Davis was elected president of the Confederacy and put a team together to go to Washington, D.C. to form a peace treaty and offer to pay for all the federal property in the South. Lincoln refused to meet him because he thought it would give them validity to their secession. Lincoln called to put down the rebellion and that no state upon its own mere notion can lawfully get out of the Union. He contradicts himself years earlier as a congressman, but former Presidents Jefferson and Adams agreed with the idea of secession because it was the state's constitutional right. There is evidence from newspapers from North, South, and even Europe that this was a tariff war and nothing else. Charles Dickens summed it up when he wrote in the British Journal, All the Year Round. Charles Dickens observed, "Union means so many millions a year lost to the South. Secession means the loss of the same millions to the North. The love of money is the root of this as many other evils." Until September of 1862, Lincoln's goal for the war was to keep the Union together at all costs, not to free the slaves or abolish it. Remember, Lincoln said, "My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it, and if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it, and if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." His Emancipation Proclamation is hailed as the speech that freed slavery, but that's simply untrue. It was a smokescreen to divert public attention from his unconstitutional acts. He started a war without consent of Congress, enacted the draft, suspended habeas corpus, burned cities, imprisoned his political enemies, shut newspapers down who disagreed with him, and imprisoned their owners. When he delivered the Emancipation Proclamation, he freed the Southern slaves, whom he had no control over, while leaving the Union slave states, who still enslaved. This shows you the true intentions of this war. Jefferson Davis contradicted Lincoln when he said the North was mad and blind. It would not let us govern ourselves, and so the war came, and now it must go on till the last man of this generation falls in his tracks, and his children seize the musket and fight our battle. Unless you acknowledge our right to self-government, we are not fighting for slavery, we are fighting for independence and that or extermination. The fight was over constitutional liberties. America is not perfect, but she must learn from her history in order to strive for greatness. In final analysis, I hope that the information that I provided you today provokes your curiosity to learn more about history and the historical figures that are statued in the country today.